Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I think I got this going the right time. Had a little bit of a false start there. I'm still trying to figure all this out. And it looks like I am streaming on both YouTube and Odyssey, which is what I was trying to get set up, and I hit the wrong button, and yeah, things are fun. Anyway, I am Abe with Mystic Gen Mara. I am a mystic from the middle of Idaho, which is kind of an odd place to be from and for that purpose, but things happen. So tonight I was just going to hop on live here for a little bit, not too long. Over the weekend, as some of you may know if you have followed some of my posts on Facebook and stuff and things I've talked about on here, I had an art show kind of going over trying to sell some of my art pieces and kind of get the word out there for what I do as far as the energy work and the Oregon pyramids and things like that. And it was a very intense few days. On Friday it was setup day, and it was almost chaos because we had a lot of people crammed in a not small space, but it wasn't as big as other ones I've been at. And we all had a little bit smaller of display areas, which was kind of the challenge. But it was a lot of fun because we were all close enough to each other that we could talk across the aisles when there weren't customers in there. And I got to meet and get to know quite a few interesting people. There's a couple of bakers in the area around Salmon that are newer to their craft. I think they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. And they are absolutely the nicest people. So if you are, in the need for bakeries, there are some fun ones around Salmon right now. And they're home bakers, and they have all their paperwork, so they're good to go. But they're just super nice people. And then met up with an old friend of mine. Well, not so much a friend of mine. I've known her for a lot of years. And she is one of the people who inspires me with pastries and desserts when I do get to go cooking. She said that she just turned 80 and she still is running a candy business, and I don't know how she's doing it. She's one of the most energetic 80-year-olds I've ever met. But it was a lot of fun getting to hang out and just be around a lot of people, kind of spread the word as to what I'm doing and show them the products that I have, which is pretty fun, getting to explain it all, like where it comes from. And I've got videos on both platforms giving an intro into the orgone and subtle energy generators, as I call them, on my different platforms. But it was just a lot of fun getting to reconnect with people, getting to visit, and I got to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a lot of years, which was kind of cool. Just getting to kind of catch up a little bit, because each one of these shows, and it doesn't matter where you're at really, if it's in a town where you were born and raised, you're going to have a very unique experience if you've been gone for a little while. But even if you're in a town where you haven't been raised and you're just kind of cruising around, if you've been in the public, working as a waiter or waitress or doing some kind of public service type job, people know you even if you don't know them. And that was the part that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, was how many people recognized me from my job with the Forest Service in the summers. But that happens. And I work for that job in an entirely different town, so it's like, how would you have known that? But I don't know, it was a lot of fun. And it always reminds you, it doesn't really matter what your thought process is on what you think you're doing. A lot of these people were coming because they liked just to get Christmas ideas. And what I thought was fun was getting to explain what I do with aura readings, how I do my oracle card and tarot readings, how my orgones work, a little bit of the history, because you have like a 30-second window where people are really gonna be standing there listening, and explaining kind of why you got into this and your beliefs around it is a lot of fun. And people tend to be responsive and are willing to listen and possibly go shopping, and that's what we all do here. if you know what you're talking about. So when you get into that passion project, and this is just advice for later, when you really tap into that passion project, understand where it came from and why you're so passionate about it. I've noticed that when people have a passion and they have some stories, like one of the bakers that was across from me in this particular market, she was telling the story of how she got into baking and how she got into sewing, because she's a seamstress and does really good work, and how she came up with some of her recipes. There's a couple of her recipes that were handed down from her grandma, and it was one of the first things that her grandma learned how to make, and so she taught her how to make it. And so that's one of her base recipes. And it just, you get to hear these different stories about how people got into their different arts. Some people, it's just like the candy lady that I was telling you about that's now 80. One of her signature items when I first got to know her was she would make spud fudge. That was her thing. And she had figured out a way to take, we're in Idaho, and she figured out a way to take the potato flakes, the real Idaho potato flakes. If you haven't seen them, it's weird. It's dehydrated mashed potatoes, but she figured out a way to use those as a base for fudge, which massively reduced the sugar content in it. So you could actually, if you were diabetic, you could actually eat this without having horrible sugar spikes. You'd have a little bit, but not a lot. But she had a passion for it. She wanted to find a way to add Idaho into her products and not just have another fudge company. And that's the thing, is when you start tapping into it, you bring your spirit, you put more of who you are into it. And I think that's what a lot of us are starting to understand in the last couple of years is, what are we here for? Why are we here? What is it that's driving us within this moment? What is making us step up and move into that better place, that better position, that fill in the blank? Because we're all moving into a different energy in the world. And I wasn't really planning on doing this part of it, but it kind of went along with what I was thinking about as I was driving and packing and all the fun stuff of putting away supplies all day today. Is we also have the 1212 portal today, which is a spiritual, gotta make sure I got the right pages here. It's a spiritual day. Trying to get everything sorted. Just one second. Thought I had it ready, and obviously I didn't. Move that. There we go. And I'm not going to put this on screen because I haven't quite figured all of that out yet. I will experiment a little bit, maybe on a video that I drop later, just so I don't have to do everything boomery on the on lives. But basically what it is the 1212 portal is an awakening of consciousness. During this time period, there's one in November, the 1111 gate, which brings in an ascension energy. This one is an open connection between the heart of the universe and we on Earth, which allows us to bring in this higher frequency, this higher vibration, and work with it in a way to tap into this higher awareness, our higher self. Our holy guardian angels really start to open up the higher chakras, and I probably will go over those. We'll go over the chakra system and some of my theories on it and beliefs in the future. But for now, we'll just reference that there's actually more than the 7 that we all were raised with. If you have knowledge of yoga and basic Hinduism, which is where the chakras come from. But this 1212 portal, it's December 12th. That's today. When it opens up at 12:01, depending on where you're at in the world for your time zone. Just work that direction with it because your time is your area, so just go with that. I know there's people who try to nitpick and, well, if it says it at this location, when a lot of the stuff was being uncovered and discovered, what we use today as time zones didn't exist to those people, so don't worry about it. But what it does is it helps us tap more into who we are, because our higher selves is the perfected frequency of our purpose. It's the perfected frequency of ourselves. And this allows you to really tap into that conscious state of yours. Now, holding on to that's where it gets tricky, but for today, the 12th of December, you can really bring in a lot of these higher frequencies, and so it can kind of reveal to you, show you where you can go, how far you can step within the coming year. I look at a lot of these energies as a year-to-year thing when we're talking the bigger energies. So with that, think about ways that you can really live that higher frequency of who you are. What lessons have you learned in the past? Look at the last year. You don't have to go longer than that. You can if you choose. But look at the last year and what was it that you have learned? What lessons, whether through hardship or through studying, but what have you learned this last year that's going to help you move into a better future? What lessons, trials, etc. have you went through or are still going through is a possibility too. But what is it that you have done that has taught you something new, different, and maybe uplifting, maybe spiritual this year? This energy that comes through is, because it's a higher frequency, you're peeling away, so be aware of that, some of the band-aids that we put on our ego. We're peeling that away because we're exposing the ego to this higher frequency, reminding the ego that it's a necessary tool, it's not the boss. And that can get a little bit rough. So if you choose to start working with this energy, and it's not forced on you, you have to willingly open up to this frequency, you have to willingly tap into it. There is some adjustments that are automatically going to happen because your soul may have other ideas than your ego does, and when that happens you may feel some of that discomfort just naturally occurring. But when you bring it into a conscious sense, you're looking at where you are now from the perspective without an ego. Where are you standing in this moment? What is it that you're here to do? So in this next year, when you start working with these type of energies, you start to look at things in the way of, what can I do to progress spiritually in the next year? What can I do to help out my fellow man in the next year? Taking care of the needs of myself, my family, and my household, but then reaching out as well to help the others. You don't want to give to everybody else, you're going to deplete yourself. You don't want to hold it all to your own family, because then you're not staying in balance by offering it to others as well. So there is that frequency of, I need to take care of myself, and then how can I help my fellow man? And this kind of energy works along that principle. So you're figuring out where you stand and what your role is, and when you figure out your role, you can work with your family, you can work outside of your circle and help those around you, even if it's something simple as praying for your town. Each town has an energy frequency, each state has an energy frequency, each government has an energy frequency, each country, continent, all of it. So even if it's something as simple as doing a crystal grid for the healing of your town, if it's lighting a candle for the soul of the country, if it's saying prayers to help uplift your community and meditating on that higher frequency, it's amazing what can happen when you do that. There's been multiple studies and multiple exercises where they've used things like transcendental meditation, and it will lower the crime rate in an area for a significant period of time. So don't think that you're simple, oh, I'm just lighting this candle, this isn't going to work, I'm just meditating for a minute. You might be surprised, because every shift that we do, every growth that we create, helps you grow your community as well. So working with this type of energy, you start tapping into your intuitive side, which a lot of these higher frequencies are going to come through your intuitive side, activating through your pineal gland, your third eye area, and then projecting forward. So you're going to start more so with a subconscious urge that's going to move into a conscious or an intuitive thought, which becomes a conscious action. So when you work with these higher frequencies, understand that sometimes you may not get anything right now, and that's fine. But your subconscious maybe. You're tapping into that higher frequency and you're trying to connect with that better aspect of yourself. or the higher aspect, not so much the better, it's the perfected form. And when you start getting more in tune with that, you connect higher into the frequency of God, source, divine energy, which is what we're all kind of trying to do in our own little ways anyway. And you can pick whatever title you want with that, because in my experience, this is my personal opinion, not anyone else's, I feel that the energy of God's frequency that responds to you is how you kind of work with it. Some people are really tapped in and wanting to work with the Christian version of Jesus and God, and that's awesome. You've got the people who work as the Catholic version, and they have their saints, their angels, Mother Mary, and all of that, and that's awesome. You've got the Hindus who have, I don't know, depending on who you talk to, up to 1,000 different deities. And I don't say that flippantly, but it's like, that is such a complex religious structure when you start really working around in it. It's not just, oh, there's Shakti, Shiva, Kali, Ganesh. There's so many more than that. It's really almost overwhelming. But if one of them resonates with you, then work with it. But understand that there's reasons for it. Like, the ones that you're going to work with are going to be the ones that are there to help you understand a lesson in your life or help you understand who you are. And sometimes that gets a little painful. Had that experience, which I'm working on some stuff on the side that will maybe go into a little bit more of that and explain some in better detail. But what we can look at this entire month of December, and that's kind of the reason I wanted to start doing a daily show just for this month. It'll go probably down to once or twice a week after December, but this month I wanted to do something every day. And it was to kind of push me forward, get me motivated, and keep me moving. And this is my personal opinion, and you get to hear it, to bring me into a different way of kind of getting the word out there for what I'm doing, what other people are doing, because the spiritual community is actually massive, but a lot of people are the Reiki practitioner down the street. He or she is just going to be this quiet little person, has their little shop, and they don't really talk much outside of their current clientele. There's people who are on public speaking stages that are doing the stuff on the internet, and they're not reaching, the person who refuses to have technology in their house. And I totally understand that some days. So whatever you can do to help get the word out there, and like I said, it can be something as simple as just offering meditation. That is a giving of gratitude and a gift to the universe, and it does work. But as we're going through this 12/12 portal, we are being shown more of who we are so that we can plan ahead for what's coming in this new year. Whether you believe with the rebirth of the sun on December 21st, sun as in S-U-N, the light returning basically, which is Yule, or if you want to do it as a New Year's resolution on January 1st. But today's another one of those times where the energy is high enough, and it's encouraging you to look at this higher frequency of yourself. What is it that you want to create in this next year? Is the path that you're on the right direction for you? And I'm not saying your job, your partner, and that could be applicable, but that's not necessarily the only thing. Look at it from a spiritual standpoint. Is the path that you're on in the moment, is this beneficial for you in the long run? Is there something that you could do to enhance this path? What is it that you can work through some fear, helping bring in more balance to your life? Are you a workaholic? Are you someone who refuses to, like, your job is a side project, you don't even want to look at it, and you're really focused on an artistic endeavor? How can you bring some balance into your life? And working with this higher frequency of, your higher self at this time is a way to see, well, maybe if I tweak this, it'll help relieve that tension. And when you get more balanced in life, you'll notice that things just flow easier. You'll be able to manifest things faster. You'll be able to work with your coworkers, your spouse, your family in a much more calm environment, because it's the imbalance that causes a lot of the chaos that we experience. But really tap into what is it you're trying to create in this next year. So, Just double checking some notes I took this afternoon. But just remember that no matter what happens, and you can do this any day of the year, it's just you have certain periods of time where the stars are aligned, if you want to go that way, to work with you, to help boost you, to help you see something outside of an emotional, egoic, reactive state. And when you start to pull some of that back, you'll realize that you need the ego. You have to have it. You're never going to dissolve it. I don't care what they say. You're going to have it because this is a way for you to deal out with an upfront. It's a face, it's a mask. You put on it, you put your mask on, you go to work. That is a part of your ego. Your ego is an energy frequency. And you can't destroy the ego, but you can remind it and rein it in. Because when the ego takes over, that's when I have to be the best. I have to do this better than you. You're not good enough. I am not in competition with you. I am better than you. That's all ego talk. And that kind of stuff will burn you almost every single time. When you teach the ego, there's times and places where that's necessary. In competition with sports, in high business meetings where you're really, trying to get a good deal, but you're not trying to harm people with it. Having the ego step forward and kind of bolster you and give you that boost, even when your anxiety is like, I can't do this, your ego can step in and be like, oh, yes, we can. But it's a tool to be used. And that's when you're higher, like on days like today, the 12-12 portals, it opens up basically the doorway to your higher self, and your higher self can step in and be like, okay, your ego does a lot of good, but this is where we need to go. So let's look at how we can step to that what's your next step, basically. And your ego is going to rebel. If you haven't been working with, reminding it where it's supposed to be, expect your ego to rebel a little bit, because your ego doesn't like to be told what to do. But it's just, it's no different than if you have a pet that has ran rampant for too long and you're basically rescuing it. You're trying to teach it how to act in civil society. So your ego, think of as a rescue pet that you have to remind that we don't chew up the couch. You have a place, you have a job, stay over there. But your ego works with your self-perception, like your hair color, your hair length, your spouse. Basically, it's any of those things that are triggered, you can usually track back to some level of your energy body and to your ego, because your ego likes to put labels on everything. Labels are fine. Everyone has a label. Straight, gay, whatever. You can be tall, short, thick, thin. Those are all ways of describing somebody, but when your ego's like, I am fill in the blank and this is who I am, your ego takes on the identity of the label, that's when the problems happen. And that's why I say if you work with your higher energy, your higher self, tapping into that God source divine energy, you get to a point where you don't label yourself. This is the experience that I'm having in the moment, and your ego's like, wait, what? I don't get to identify anymore? No. You go sit down. But working with this energy, we'll just keep bouncing back to this. It's a way for you to kind of release that heavier energy. It's kind of a way to release that excess that comes up. And that's what we need to do. We're here to live life to the fullest, and you can't do that when you have a backpack full of garbage. And the ego likes to collect that stuff. And so finding ways to kind of remove that backpack, drop it, let it go. And I know it's a Christian book, and there's actually a couple of fun movies about it. But look at Pilgrim's Progress and his journey to release his burden. That's the soul's journey. We have to get to that point where we can kick off that backpack, let go of that egoic collection of nonsense, and you're not going to do it all at one time. You're going to slowly drop things that you don't need. And when you have the opportunity, like I said, the planets aligned for you in the moment, start working with that energy. So it can start to take hold and you can grow basically quicker. But understand that every time you remove one of these heavier energies, you're basically saying, okay, I'm ready for the next one. Because you remove one, the next one comes to the front, says, okay, let's work through this lesson, and then I will be out of here too. We're in a constant state of growth. We're in a constant state of change. And as long as we can stay connected to source and connect with our hearts, and which allows us to spread that love and attention to other people, then as we grow and we release, we can help other people grow and release, because they will see what you're doing and see the work and how it's changing you, even in subtle ways. People notice things like that. A group of people are not going to notice big things, but the people you work around, your family, they're going to notice the little changes that are occurring as you work through and you release and you tap into this higher frequency. It doesn't mean you're going to become, a complete pacifist. Some people do. But you're going to be yourself, but you're going to be more yourself, if that makes sense. And when you work with this type of energy, especially during these portal periods of like 11-11 and 12-12 and things like that, you're going to notice synchronicities. Things are just going to line up better. That's when I make the comment of, you'll notice that as you release and you tap into your higher self, you can manifest quicker. Meaning the goals that you're setting come to you faster, because you see, well, this is the logical next step, and this is the logical next step. And it allows you to basically see things clearer so you can move forward in a much more rapid way. And now I need to figure out how to move there it is. So working with that type of energy where you can grow and you can shift and you can change is why we have the ancients figured out certain days were more apropos for that. Really working on releasing the last year was the time of Samhain, October 31st. You're learning to let go. Let the, to use the older terms, let the dying god take the stress away. Release what you can at that time. And then you're allowed a quiet period. October 31st to usually December 21st. In the old cultures, you were kind of finishing up the outdoor work, you were finishing preserving food, you were teaching the next generation. There was a period of time there, in the northern hemisphere anyway, where you were more calm, you were more settled. And it was mainly because, if you're talking spiritual terms, you released a huge amount. You released the last year on October 31st. And you weren't ready for the next year to really come in until the days started getting longer, because during that October 31st to December 21st is a rapid period of shortening days. And when you start to pay attention to it, like if you are at an office and you can be near a window, really pay attention to how quick or how short the days really get. And on December 21st is the shortest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, to be the longest in the southern hemisphere. And after that, the days start getting longer, which means there's things you have to work on. You start planning for calving and lambing and all the rest of that stuff. The next generation of your stock is coming through. The education of planting, the education of starting to warm up, where the foods, as the winter progresses towards spring, a lot of your preserved food starts to, start getting less and less of it. But it's that growth period of, what are you planning on? So this is that planning time. It's a quiet time. It's kind of a, if you want to use the term, recovery time. But you have these high frequencies coming in to remind you that yes, it's a recovery time, but it's also a time to start planning for the next generation. So what I plan on doing now, as long as you guys are interested, is to just pull some cards, and I'm only going to pull one or two, but I'm working on the elemental energies. So we'll start off with the fire energy, because I work with elements better than I do the zodiac. It's how I work. But I will let you know, if you are a fire sign, which is Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, you can work with the messages that come through, and I'll announce which zodiac signs are associated with each element as we go. So for the fire signs, the energy to kind of look at and work with is the Queen of Summer, loving, comforting, emotional, and intuitive. Listen to your heart, intuitive insights you can trust, taking care of others, maybe too much. And then you also have the Six of Winter. Positive changes are on the way, welcome relief from troubled times, and traveling or relocating. So, get those held up there for you. Your energy that's coming up right now is really about learning your boundaries, taking care of the people that you can take care of, but also knowing that you need to take care of yourself. So when you tap into this 1212 frequency, fire signs, you really want to look at how you can set your boundaries, how you can work with your own energy, and how you can help the other people, but not overstep those boundaries and give too much, because that's where a burnout occurs. And when you start to bring yourself into more balance, you get into that 6 of winter energy, where the positive changes, those positive growths that you have been kind of looking for, kind of craving is the word I keep hearing. That's when you'll start to develop more of that. But it's because you're setting your boundaries and you're learning, I can give this much energy, but I need to keep this much back so that I can take care of myself and work with my self-care. So, and I'm using the Fairy Tarot by Radleigh Valentine right now, which is a really fun deck to work with. It's pretty gentle, and the messages are they're more uplifting. It doesn't get into too much of the more stressed stuff, but it is a good deck to work with. So next we'll do the Earth signs, and the Earth energy is associated with Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And only one card popped out for Earth, and it's the 4 of Spring. Be grateful, you have much to celebrate, deep feelings of peace and happiness, and a contented personal life. So what this is really saying is learn how to express gratitude, Earth signs. You tend to be the more stable, the more grounded of the signs, to the point where a lot of the Earth signs that I know don't even like to get in planes because they're disconnected from Earth, and that bothers them. And I'm not kidding. I've known a lot of different Earth signs, a lot of Tauruses and a lot of Capricorns, and they don't do well in planes. But this card is saying to really tap into your gratitude. Maybe it's been a little bit selfish here lately. This last year especially might have been a little bit rough with things not being appreciated like you should, but you just can't quite figure out get into that. And this card is saying things to work on for this next year is to find happiness in your home, which is kind of where your energy resides anyway. The Earth element is really about the hearth, the home, and the family. And so what the 4 of Spring is saying is really embrace that. Find a time to set up a time every month to do a date night, just you and your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, maybe pick that night to go out and socialize and try to maybe meet somebody that way. But really tap into that energy, but remember that no matter what happens, find a way to always be grateful. If your job is being a headache, be like, I'm grateful for the opportunity I have to grow and experience spiritual development through this hard time. If it's your family life, get into the mindset of, I'm grateful for this opportunity to show my spouse how much I appreciate them. Or I'm grateful for this opportunity to let my spouse have a moment, have some peace and quiet. I'll take the kids and we'll go do something else so that my spouse can basically have that time. But find reasons to be grateful for all of it, is what they're saying. So, and when I say they, I'm talking about God, Source, Divine Energy, and my elemental guides that work with me when I do these type of readings. The next one we're going to look at is the elemental sign of air, and this is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Aquarius is the water bearer, Gemini is the twins, and Libra, I believe, is the scales. I'm not good with zodiac, sorry. But what's coming up for you is the 4 of Summer, being distracted and failing to see a magical opportunity, taking someone or something for granted, and discontentment with life. Oop, there we go. So what this is actually, and they're kind of saying that this is a warning card, and not negative warning, but like a reminder card. The negative aspects of air, the positive aspects are intellect and knowledge and wisdom and learning and getting to the heart of a situation and being able to peel away the basically the illusions. But the downside of air, which is an interesting one, because you'd think it would be more water. Water is really emotional, but the downside of air, the negative aspect of air, is that they're flighty. They don't want to stay connected. They don't sit on any one subject. So if you are an air sign and you just kind of been bouncing around, you're not really delving into anything, you just kind of skim along the top, because the term, you've heard the term airhead. It's because you get into your head with all of these other ideas and you become really flighty. Instead of, bringing yourself down and grounding a little bit, you want to just fly away and go do all this other stuff and not really focus on growth. You just want to bounce. And what this card is saying is, this is a time for you to really look at ways that you can bring your excess energy into a more controlled state and learn how to mold those flighty periods into something that can be a spiritual construction for you. So if you're really artistic, find a way to maybe incorporate your spiritual journey into your art. And that's a way to combine the two aspects of your intellect and your art and your three aspects and your spirit into one item. But really what they're really saying is to find ways to be grateful for the people in your life and be grateful for the talented gifts that you have. Because when an air sign is really focused on building, they're absolutely amazing. Their intellectual abilities are really, to me, not matched. Just because when they focus on it, they really tap into this higher energy of knowledge and wisdom. And what this card is saying is, don't get distracted by the little things. You have a soul's calling. Find out how to work that soul's calling into your everyday life. Find ways to stay grounded, because that's how you're going to manifest really strongly, is when you have your ability to keep your feet on the ground but your head in the clouds. You bring in earth and heaven, and you can create a lot of awesome things out of that. So that's some things to think about for air signs for this 12/12 portal. And on to the water signs of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Cancer's the crabby one of the zodiac in my mind. Scorpio can be a little bit hostile, but Pisces is the twinned fish. And the thing with all of these, though, if you look at their demeanor, they're more focused on emotion. The crabs of Cancer, they're an emotional being. They want to be kind of in control, but they don't know how to do it in a calm manner, so they tend to get a little bit more bitey. Scorpio, they're Scorpion. You're going to strike before they think, so they have a little bit of a fire aspect to them as well, but it's based on their emotions. And then Pisces, the daydreamers, the ones who refuse to stay grounded in anything, and they tend to let the watery side of their emotions dominate, and it can be really happy. There's two of them, really happy one minute and crying the next, or they can be a completely emotional basket case, depressed and anxious about everything, and then 2 minutes later they're completely confident and they can handle it all. So look at these different aspects and think about those when we start to go over this card with water signs. And it's the 4 of winter. There's been a lot of 4s today. So maybe that's a key number for all the sign elements to look into. But the 4 of winter is set aside your concerns. You can make decisions later, solutions that come from meditation and the need for sleep or a vacation. So, and I'm a water sign, so this one actually resonates really strong with me right now. It's things that we've been worried about in this last year, other water signs. We have been worried about health. We've been worried about the government. We've been worried about our jobs. We've been worried about our families. And what this is saying is, let it go. Stop worrying about everything. Really tap into living in the now moment. Don't worry about the past. Don't worry about the future. You're here, right here. So stay in this moment. Learn to tap into that so that you can make your plans for the future. Not worry about them, but set plans, set goals. And bringing yourself into meditation, I know with a lot of water signs, they have, as one of my energy teachers called it, escapism. They have this obsessive urge to disconnect. They want to be in fantasy. They want to have some kind of, maybe not the best options for escaping the world. They want to get away. And what this card is saying is, find ways to relax and meditate and bring yourself down so that you can sleep better. Find ways to kind of do some daydreaming, but make it active daydreaming where you're using positive visualization to manifest a future that you want. But basically what they're saying is don't put so much worry and don't put so much concern into your future goals. The energy of the 12-12 portal is helping you understand where your ego stands, and this goes for all of the signs. Learn how to set the ego aside when it's necessary and bring it back when you need it. And when you start working in that, you start to discover that your higher frequencies, your higher self, can manifest into your life much, much better. And you'd be surprised the different things that can happen. So work on not being concerned, water signs, and allow yourself to grow into a more living in the moment type life versus wanting escape all the time. So hopefully those little readings resonated and I wasn't too discombobulated tonight. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, so I was working with what I was comfortable with and what I had some knowledge of. So, and we will continue doing a daily video or some form of live stream, maybe even the rest of the week. I know Wednesday will be a video for sure because I have other obligations. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoy, even though it was a little chaotic tonight, this type of stream, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and like I said, just let me know what ideas, thoughts, suggestions, and I'll even take criticism just as long as we're respectful. That's the one thing that I think we all can have a little bit more of in the world, is a little bit more respect for our fellow creators, our fellow man, our fellow human. Just something to think about. With that, I will let you guys go, and I will talk to you in a future video.